Let's talk Lagu SABC1 and a very good evening. If you just joined us, thank you for joining us this evening. We're discussing workers' issues. We've seen the wave of strike that has been gripping the country in the past few weeks, and we're asking the question, are workers' demands for double-digit increases realistic? Chris Hart, let's bring you in here. There's a feeling, certainly among the workers, that, as illustrated in the insert we played a bit earlier on, that employers are only looking at the bottom line of how much they are paying, to effect these increases that the unions are demanding, and not looking at the fact that, things are actually, the prices of things are actually going up each and every year.
This is the problem, is that if the price of petrol goes up, that doesn't mean the company's suddenly going to get more earnings. Their costs go up. That bottom line that they talk about, the profit, is the lifeblood of the economy. Without that, the business doesn't exist. Right, so I'm not sure what they actually mean, all right, in the sense that you have to have it. Now, what I'm suggesting is that if we started to look at productivity-related wage increases, not inflation-related wage increases, these double-digit wage increases are possible. In other words, I believe that you've got more blue sky potential, right, that we should be aspiring to Japanese wages or German wages. That's what I said in my opening remarks. We will never do that if we're trapped with inflation plus agreements. You'll never, ever, ever get there, all right? You'll always be poor as a worker, all right? So we need to start changing our mindset and saying, how can unions, instead of and management, instead of attacking each other, actually align so that they're actually working with each other so that the actual wage pool can actually be grown. If a company only earns 100 Rand, that's all they can do is share it, right, amongst the workers. And when management are paying themselves according to performance and workers are paying themselves according to inflation, you'll get this wider and wider disparity. Right. You need to then nail it down so that these things are shared more equitably.
Mr. Jim, let's bring you in here. Mr. Hart is talking about productivity-related increases as opposed to inflation plus increases, which he says is the trend at the moment. Do you agree?
My worry, I'm not sure when Chris has been in the factory. I think he spent a lot of time in Sandton. If he were to go to factories, one of the things that he will come across all our sectors is what both companies and the union are engaging. How do we address productivity? How do we address competitiveness? In fact, Chris, there is something called continuous improvement, which before workers start working, they have got 5 minutes talk to actually ask themselves, they are asked the question, what can we do to help you to work easy, work smart? And the spin-offs of that agenda of competitiveness has been to double volumes of production, to produce quality production that compete globally. The problem is that that social surplus that is produced by workers is not shared. He does not agree that there is an apartheid wage gap which exists. For instance, the captains of industries, as we're sitting here, in the recent part, PwC report explained that they've given themselves an increase of 23%, 56% goes to their own bonuses. What CPI is he talking about? What is CPI to 23%? What is CPI to 56% of the bonus?
If you listen to what I'm saying, yes, is why can workers also not share in that kind of increase, all right, by actually insisting on how much of that productivity gains are actually shared.
But there's a question.
That way you can actually make progress. I defy anybody to say somebody earning 3% more, if you were earning, we're going to get 7%, that's inflation, plus 3% extra. How on earth, what difference is that going to be make if you earn 4,000 or 5,000 Rand a month really in your life? You actually need to be able to achieve the 20-30% increases so that these things can actually be things. But the only way you can do it is productivity, because with productivity you will also get the investment into the economy. What Irvin is saying is true. We do see productivity increases. We lag way behind the rest of the world.
Mr. Papenfus, I have to bring you in here. I mean, there's all this talk about what Mr. Jim calls the apartheid wage gap, and talking of the statistics he cited, 23% increases for captains of industry. That's a charge against your constituency.
No, it is not my constituency. They are
the employers.
Well, it's employers, yeah, but the guys that negotiated this thing, perhaps they industry, but, you know, we're talking about 5% of the industry. 80 to 90% of the industry employers are guys employing 20 to 30 people. That's very hard for them to make it in this environment. And that is the problem that we have when these guys negotiated behind closed doors. Big guys struck a deal and now make it law, want to make it law. It's not a law. As it stands, it's simply an agreement between two parties. They will try to extend it to the rest of the industry. The guys that's been affected by this thing is small business, one-man shows, employing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. That's the majority of the employers, and they cannot afford this. They cannot. And we can bring thousands and thousands of examples. We've closed the door for entrepreneurship. A young guy cannot go into this industry. He's dead even before he started. We compete with China, and what I find so strange is that whilst China is becoming our biggest trade partner, these rules do not apply to them.
Right.
And you know what? We're going to import our products, what we've manufactured here will in future be brought in. And remember, each product that we import, we've exported the job. Now, to wipe out the inequalities of the past, it does exist. I will not deny that. This is not the way to do this. And you know, the biggest driver of inequality is unemployment. Now, we're not helping. This increase will cause another 30,000 jobs to be shed.
Right, Mr. Papenfus, hold it there for a second. I want to bring you in, Mr. Hart, to respond. I could hear you wanted to respond to the China issue, and I can see that Mr. Jim is also itching to bring forward the perspective of the workers. Let's continue the discussion. Chris, when Mr. Papenfus was talking, I could see you were itching, especially when you mentioned the issue of China.
Yeah, I've got a brother-in-law who's actually not in the steel business, is actually in more plastics, etc. His business was shut down by steel workers who couldn't tell the difference between plastic and steel in the first place. He is, with the downturn, struggling to keep the business going. Okay, he hasn't taken a salary now for close on 2 years, for instance. Mortgaged his house, etc., to keep that business going. It's a business with about 15 employees, etc., etc. Now, that's the risk he's taking to keep it. The industry conditions are extremely difficult because of the regulatory requirements that is actually supposed to meet. And there's a huge resentment that if you take that risk of not getting a salary, what happens if that business starts to do well later on? Then suddenly you resent that business doing well. It shouldn't work like that. And this is why I'm saying the contract should be, if you're taking risk, etc., when the business is down, you need to also share in the rewards, but one needs to appreciate that to achieve bigger wage increases, one has to produce the value first. With the value, you can now discuss how to share it.
Right.
To have these agreements without this, you know, to say, we're just going to get value from nowhere because our cost of groceries have gone up, is not going to work, because what happens, you get two victims: the customer who has to pay for it because the prices go up in any case, and then the unemployed who have a smaller...
Right, Mr. Hart, I need to take a commercial break. Our discussion continues. You're watching Asikhulume. Let's talk here on SABC1. We're back after this break.